Mass migration into Europe and the US has recently sparked a heated debate concerning nationhood and what exactly it means to be a Westerner. It is well understood that many of the people coming in have a different culture to the ones currently living in Europe. But when asked to describe exactly what this native European culture truly is, most Europeans are unable to find a functioning definition. Some might use history, pointing to the fact that Europe had to defend itself against the series of attacks coming in from the east. And if that is the case, then we can surely trace the first such defense to the heroic stance mounted by these vastly outnumbered Greek city-states against the armies of Persia, the superpower of the ancient world. Their deeds were immortalized in history and fiction alike, reaching a global audience through Hollywood's film 300, where King Leonidas was heard shouting, "Come and take them," to the Persians who tried to convince him of giving away his army's shields as a sign of peaceful surrender. And yet, what is often forgotten is that King Leonidas existed in a culture where another warrior, as well as a poet, wrote about a similar event, albeit in a radically different way. His name was Archilochus, and like Leonidas, he fought against barbarians, the Thracian tribes of the north, leaving behind him a poem commemorating his deeds. A poem that, as strange as it will seem once you actually hear it, might hold the secret to our burning question: what is the West? It reads, "Well, what if some barbaric Thracian glories in that perfect shield I left under a bush? I was sorry to leave it, but I saved my skin. Does it matter? Oh hell, I'll buy a better one." Archilochus was born in the island of Paros, and by a happy coincidence his life can be precisely dated, as he was a contemporary of the Lydian king Michailidis, who lived between 687 and 652 BC. We are told that Archilochus was born into a distinguished family, with both his father and grandfather being well regarded in their island home. His would be a life of a warrior poet, a combination that he captured beautifully in one of his poems. "I am a servant of the kingly war god Ares, but I also understand the muse's lovely gifts." Despite his high birth and many talents, and following what is perhaps a typically European impulse, Archilochus rebelled against his noble upbringing, claiming that his mother was a mere slave and that he was forced to leave his homeland to become a mercenary in the island of Thasos. The rest of his life, known through the fragments that have survived from his poems, reveal a brash adventurer who broke many of the taboos that were considered sacred during his own time. In one such episode, Archilochus was promised the hand of one of his compatriots' daughter, but was denied her favors in the last moment. Like a true player, Archilochus seduced her younger sister and wrote a poem about the two of them. So shameful it was that legend has it the whole family committed suicide. Needless to say that his attitude made him a controversial figure, but in time his skill with Greek verse turned him into an object of admiration, even into a classic worthy of being depicted next to Homer himself, while centuries after his death a temenos, or holy shrine, was erected in his memory. Archilochus' life would ultimately end in battle, but not before he could leave behind a body of works loved and hated in equal measure throughout antiquity. The poem we read in the beginning concerning his desertion in the midst of battle makes reference to a perfect ammomiton shield, the most celebrated weapon of the Greek hoplite, as apart from protection, it carried the ideas of his entire culture, a culture based on communal living and mutual sharing of responsibilities. the same ideals that would lead to the creation of the first functioning democracy. The Greek word for weapon, Oplan, originally referred to the shield, which, used correctly, became the link to a chain of trust that united the soldiers of Greek battalions into a single body ready for combat. It was said that on the day of battle, Spartan mothers would hand the shield to their sons with the saying, "Itan I epitas," either return with it or on it. Naturally, throwing this weapon in the heat of battle would be a shameful act, especially when taking a barbarian from Thrace. But when Archilochus admits in his poems, "I was sorry to leave it, but I saved my skin," he actually turned himself into a hero of a different kind, a literary hero, as he became the first known author to write from a subjective viewpoint, inaugurating this great, unique European tradition that was carried all the way into the 21st century. Because despite the cultural relativism that has been so dominant across academia, this tradition that begins with a single verse from Archilochus, the turning of the most cherished ideas of one's own culture in their head, is still absent from most of the world. Because while it's true that some of the mystics of Islam, the Sufis, broke many of the Muslim taboos concerning the drinking of wine, it is still impossible to imagine someone like Rumi burning a Quran in the dead of winter saying, "What does it matter? It's only a book. I can always buy a better one." And if Archilochus was an exception, he was only so for being the first. Because while the culture of ancient Greece remained aristocratic in nature, scholars have long been aware of an undercurrent that flowed in the opposite direction, criticizing and even ridiculing some of the most venerated beliefs of ancient Greek culture. Sappho, the most celebrated woman of lyric poetry, asks in one of her poems, "What is good in life?" And unlike some idealist philosopher, she replies with astonishing modernity, "Whatever you love best." And Archilochus, who was by no means a coward, plays with these very ideals, fully aware of what modern soldiers know, that often their neatly pressed uniforms, perfect like Archilochus' shield, can serve to carry the ideals of honor just as often as to hide their absence. And so, it's especially sad to see that amidst all of our problems, we are rapidly losing the ability to laugh at our own selves. With so many comedians being ferociously attacked, their shows cancelled throughout college campuses on grounds that some of their jokes are offensive, which of course they are, just as they should be. So how about we use that for a definition? How about defining the West as a cultural matrix that could give birth to both King Leonidas and Archilochus?